You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors. If you're looking for quality workmanship and attentive customer service, call the folks at Extreme Exteriors. They won't give you a sales job. They will be thoughtful and consultative in their approach and to all your maintenance needs. That's Extreme Exteriors, 763-441-1334. Tell them Gene and Tony sent you. And before we get started, too, I'd just like to remind our listeners in the first hour, we have a free subscription, a bi-monthly newsletter that we would love to give you. A lot of the topics we cover on the radio show are covered in further detail, and it's a great resource. Give us a call during the week at 952-922-2500 and ask for Courtney, and she'll make sure that you start receiving your subscription.
And this morning, if you have a comment about something you hear on the show, or you have a question about being a renter, being a landlord, living in an association, just call us 651-289-4488.
And with that, we're happy to welcome back in the studio once again Mike Vra, who is the managing attorney and director for Homeline Inc., a tenants advocacy group. And they've come out with a brand new book called How to Be the Smartest Renter on Your Block. Good morning, Mike.
Hello.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for being here with us. This new book, How to Be the Smartest Renter on the Block, tell us what caused you to want to see a need for writing this.
Well, Homeline has always had a fairly singular goal, which is to try to educate renters. We run a tenant hotline, which we've talked about before, where so far I think we've advised 135,000 callers since 1992 on their individual rights and responsibilities. And that's really what we try to do, is educate people on what their rights are, because tenants generally, if you're going to stereotype, know less about the law than landlords. So we try to inform them what the rules are, what their responsibilities are, and the book seemed like an efficient way to try to do that. Also to sort of force us to sit down and, in a comprehensive way, state what we've been advising people for all this time in a modern version. This is a month old, the book is, so it's pretty new.
Brand new.
Yeah.
And how long did it take?
Well, we started on the project, I want to say in November of last year, and
Okay.
I arrogantly believed that I could sit down and write a book over a weekend, which I guess doesn't work that way.
Oh, man.
I think I could have written a book over the weekend, but it would have been terrible. So it was a arduous process. We have 4 staff attorneys who all wrote at least a couple chapters.
Yeah.
And then it went through a review process. We had 10 people probably in our office, including some interns. We brought in a student from the University of Minnesota who did a great job of laying the book out, which we had no idea how to do. And it was a real labor, but we're happy with the result.
Now, have there been other books that have been out there that address this?
A group called the St. Paul Tenants Union, which no longer exists, but did have a giant presence. I actually got in the game in 1996, I think, the landlord-tenant law world here in Minnesota. And the St. Paul Tenants Union had a much bigger presence in the 80s and 90s. And then 95, I want to say, they produced a book similar to this, not quite as lengthy, but it was the same concept. And that was the last really big book. I believe Legal Aid also produced something about 2000, but it wasn't really in a book format. It was more of a brochure, not a brochure, but it was more like a handbook or a workbook setting. This is, looks like a book.
Yeah.
So it's been at least 10 years since anybody's tried something like this that I know of.
Well, in reading the book, I've really been impressed. It's a great conversational read. I think it's
That's
very
right.
good.
It seems easy to read. It's very comprehensive. I think you covered just about everything I could think of as far as landlord-tenant relationships go.
Well, actually, the great part about my job, because I do answer the phone a lot, the tenant hotline, and I still once a week get a call that surprises me. So we can't put it all in here. Yeah. But the stuff that comes up again and again.
And I was going to say that if it's been since 95, since a book was written about the subject, a lot has changed since
absolutely.
1995
Absolutely.
in state statute and local ordinances and
just the market, really.
Yeah.
And the market. That's a good point.
You said that, a lot of your job is kind of education, helping renters understand what their rights and responsibilities are in this whole thing. That's the same thing we are involved with too on the landlord or owner side.
That's
and
right.
To me, it always maybe this is just an observation, but it seems like there are a number of folks that find it easier to do the background research for their next flat screen TV or cell phone more than they do before they think about entering into a lease or entering into a purchase agreement, on a home sometimes. And that's kind of scary.
It absolutely is, especially in the purchase agreement arena, because that's a giant commitment. A lease is usually just a year, but if you're talking about an 18-year-old, that's the biggest contract they'll have ever seen in their lives.
Sure. It's an important one. I really don't want to jinx the use of this book by saying that I think it's good, and I don't want people to think that it's because it has a landlord slant. I don't think it does at all. I think what I like about it is you tell renters and explain rights to renters in a way that we often do as well, and we, of course, operate within the law and try and do our very best to treat our customers really, really well. And I come up against the same issues over and over where renters are misinformed or misunderstand certain issues, and most of those were addressed here.
Yeah, that's actually a big deal. The myths that people hear about.
That's right.
Just briefly for our listeners, tell us what are some of those biggest myths or misunderstandings that you hear over and over again? Questions.
Sure. Yeah, I can't be evicted during the winter. Would be one of the most common misconceptions. I mean, people will call us up and say, my landlord has threatened me with an eviction or filed an eviction, and how do I assert the winter defense? And
unfortunately, there isn't.
And they're dead serious.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell them, I mean, hey, look, go down to housing court in January and see if it's boarded up. It's
gone fishing. A big sign on the door. Yeah.
But the winter defense. I suppose. Where do you think they come?
Well, that's pretty easy.
That?
It's the utility thing.
Yeah.
They hear about the utilities can't be shut off during the winter, and so they somehow
make the assumption that.
And then one tenant tells another one, or a friend tells somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. How about the foreclosure issues that are going on right now? That has been so huge.
Yeah, it's not really myths there. It's just an absolute lack of information.
Yeah, I agree. And the information has been changing year by year by year.
Yeah, I think 3 times in the last 5 years there's been a meaningful change in this state or federal law as it affects tenants when it comes to foreclosures. It gets really tricky fast, and most tenants think they have to leave a lot sooner than they do.
That's right. I would agree with that. And a lot of landlords can't keep up with it either. So
that's right.
We all really need to get educated.
Yeah. We've kind of liked the fact that things have been written the way they have, so that tenants don't have to get out as quick, because it's a benefit, at least in our industry too, with homeowner associations. It's a benefit because if the homeowner associations ends up taking over that responsibility, and you don't have a mortgage company that's pulled the trigger quickly, then many times the association can benefit from that monthly rent.
The association can start collecting the rent.
To help pay down on that debt that homeowner left unpaid for the association, and the renter
gets to stay.
Well, I mean, worst case scenario, it's a paying house sitter, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's right. Someone's occupying the house, and that's exactly right. And associations should value that.
Yes. Well, we need to take another break right now. When we come back, we've got more. We're going to get into some specifics on how to be the smartest renter on your block. You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.